I'm just laughing because he got beat up so bad. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing. He got beat up so bad. Sorry, I'm just laughing.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay where we're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. Well, I'm sure most of you are aware what's going on with Fury right now, and to that, the WBC president says that he believes Tyson Fury's story over the former in his drug test payoff claim. For those not already aware, back in February of 2015, Fury and his cousin Huey tested positive for a banned substance, nandrolone. The test results were widely reported to have been the direct result of ingested, uncastrated wild boar or contaminated supplements. Carefoot claims to have submitted 2 signed witness statements to Fury's attorney, who in turn presented them to UKAD. But now Carefoot is coming out with his admission because he claims to have never received the promised payoff. I have never kept wild boar. I just went along with it, and they dangled this carrot I was going to get paid, Carefoot told the Mail. Suleiman, the WBC president, is not backing away from his new world champion and says he is firmly in Fury's corner on the controversial matter. Personally, I prefer to believe Tyson Fury ahead of someone who has already admitted to lying in legal documents for financial gain, Suleiman told Sunsport. The person who has claimed he accepted money to lie should be the one on trial, in my personal opinion, especially when he has waited 5 years to tell his story. Secondly, around this time, Tyson was not involved with the WBC. He did not fight Klitschko for the WBC belt. It was for the other titles. So this issue does not impact on him being our heavyweight world champion. And Suleiman's stance more or less accents what I told you guys in my previous video, that all that Martin Carefoot did in coming forward with this admission, whether it's true or false, is incriminate himself, as this has no bearing over Tyson Fury's current standing as the WBC heavyweight champion. This has no bearing over his 2 fights with Deontay Wilder.
One ain't got shit to do with the other.
Martin Carefoot has done anything here, it's make himself subject to whatever punishments, whatever penalties are in association with falsifying testimony to corroborate Tyson Fury's story. But as far as Tyson Fury, Huey Fury, the aforementioned parties, well, their quote-unquote debt to society, as it were, it's already been paid.
What are you talking about?
Well, Tyson Fury and Huey Fury were never vindicated, per se. They were never exonerated of culpability for the nandrolone that was found in both of their systems. Particular to Tyson Fury, who this subject is really about, Tyson Fury more or less accepted responsibility for the nandrolone being in his system and received a backdated 2-year ban from UKAD. So as far as the nandrolone being in a system and all of that, that matter has already been resolved. That matter has already been reconciled. So any of these particulars in association with Martin Carefoot's story are up to him to prove. So the burden of proof lies not with the accused, but the accuser. And you're accusing this guy of bribing you, rather failing to bribe you. In that way, okay, well, you've got to prove that. Otherwise, you're pissing in the wind and it's getting on your pants.
That's the best analogy.
We've covered this particular angle of the story already, and what we're here to discuss is the WBC's stance on Tyson Fury's current situation, a situation that really is no situation at all, as all of this is ancient history. This was never kept away from the boxing community. This was never omitted
or hidden.
This was common knowledge and a matter of public record for anyone who was keeping up with what was going on in boxing back then in 2015 and 2016, and it seems that it's only really Wilder's fans that didn't get the memo, as they're treating this news as if it's fresh news.
You ain't know?
So some farmer comes forward with some story and you guys readily believe it. That's fine, that's okay. You can believe whatever you want to believe. It's just that the end game in association with that story is that Tyson Fury might have been playing dirty when he fought Christian Hammer. And I think most of us by now, most of us that were already aware of the story, have come to terms with that being a possibility, a genuine possibility. That, yeah, you know, if he's got an androlone in his system, it's because he put it there. He was looking for a competitive edge.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Is that all?
I mean, most of us have already come to terms with that. Moving forward, UKAD has so decided to investigate these claims. And however far they do or don't get with this investigation really hinges on what evidence, if any, can Martin Carefoot provide them to substantiate this claim. It's what I told you before. But as far as Tyson Fury being the WBC champion, being available to fight Deontay Wilder for a third time...
It's a non-issue.
Well, this doesn't affect that at all, as that fight would take place here stateside, not over there in the United Kingdom, within the jurisdiction of UKAD and the British Boxing Board of Control. Whatever they decide, if they decide to do anything, is besides the point. It doesn't affect that rubber match in the least bit, unless we forget. Tyson Fury is a guy who is talking about retiring
He is.
in his next 2 fights. You go back to February of 2015, when this whole thing got started. It took UKAD, their investigation, about 16 months to stick it to Tyson Fury and Hughie Fury. That took 16 months. In 16 months, ladies and gentlemen, Tyson Fury could very well be retired. Just as well, in association with that investigation that goes all the way back to February of 2015. You know that UKAD spent something like £600
$600,000
investigating that case. It broke the bank on that thing, and I don't think here today they are willing to break the bank yet again for this farmer's allegations.
More trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
Not unless he can provide some kind of substantial evidence that corroborates his story, that he was bribed and he went along to falsify testimony for the Furies. You know, you got to be able to prove it, because if all you got is your word, well, your word ain't good enough. You're going to have to be able to substantiate what it is you're saying, as these are your accusations. Do you think that UKAD wants to spend what could be another £600,000 in well over a year investigating this case, when by the time it concludes, Tyson Fury may not even be boxing anymore? Do you think they want to do that? Over hearsay, over anecdotes, in the absence of concrete evidence that proves what Martin Carefoot is saying. Do you think they want to do that?
I don't.
This investigation and rehatching it could prove to be more of a formality than anything else. And while this is going on, Fury and Wilder could end up fighting for a third time. Fury may end up beating him yet again and moving on to the Anthony Joshua fight. I think the desired scenario from the usual suspects, the guys in Wilder's corner, what they're hoping is that perhaps Tyson Fury can be forced to vacate the WBC title to then have that title returned to Deontay Wilder, when these two matters are unrelated matters. But even if it went the way that they wanted to, that Tyson Fury was somehow stripped of the WBC title, it wouldn't go to Wilder. You know who it would go to? Dillian fucking White. That's right, it would go to Dillian, because Dillian is the interim champion, and in most of these kinds of situations where the full title goes vacant, what usually happens is the interim champion is then elevated to full champion. At worst, what the WBC might do in a situation like that, assuming they don't elevate Dillian to full champion,
Hypothetically.
what they might do is simply order a fight between Dillian and Deontay. And for Dillian, that's good news, because that's what he's always wanted. Coincidentally, that's what Deontay Wilder hasn't always wanted, or his fans. For some reason, they've been averse to that fight. They'd rather see Wilder fight Ortiz 2 times than fight Dillian White once.
Make of that what you will.
So the WBC has decided to stand by Tyson Fury in the midst of these accusations, allegations, and that's really not surprising.
Not really.
And what, if anything, comes of this is kind of besides the point, as it doesn't affect the immediate future in regards to Tyson.
The biggest takeaway for me here is, if you want to judge Tyson Fury harshly due to the Nandrolone case from 2015, you can.
Go ahead.
You might be a bit late to the party, but better still, It's your opinion and you're entitled to it. I just think it's rather convenient to spend so much time trying to vilify him for this case when it's always been there.
Really isn't new news.
The entire buildup of Wilder versus Fury 1 or 2, you didn't see these same guys spending all this time on what was Tyson Fury's Nandrolone case. They didn't mention it. They didn't talk about it. If anything, they talked him up so that they could turn around after the fight and try to use this to assassinate his character. And yes, Martin Carefoot has his role to play, as he has only recently come forward with these accusations. But the relevant elements of the accusations, the relevant aspects of it,
They're the same.
those aspects haven't changed. Tyson Fury tested positive for Nandrolone after the Christian Hammer fight. He was given a retroactive ban as a result.
As a penalty.
And the rest is history. And none of this is going to change the outcome of Wilder versus Fury 1 or 2. Rest assured, we know what your real interests here are. And they're not Martin Carefoot's story or Tyson Fury's Nandrolone case. Y'all motherfuckers is just mad that Tyson Fury beat the shit out of Deontay Wilder, and a lot of people happen to think he's gonna beat the shit out of him again. That's the only thing you're concerned with. That's the only thing you care about. And that's the only reason you're spending time on this, because this same effort didn't go into vilifying Tyson Fury right after he beat Vlad.
Where were you?
So all of a sudden you're up in arms about it years later? No, I know what it is. I know what the difference is between then and now. I know what the difference is. The difference is that years later, Tyson Fury kicked Deontay Wilder's ass, and that's what you're really mad about. That's why you're working hard to vilify this guy. That's all it is, and you don't fool anybody. In other news, top-ranked president expects Jarell Miller to become a top player in the division. Todd Duboff, the heir apparent to the throne over there at Top Rank, was quoted as saying, "Miller has a like personality to Fury and Wilder, a great talker and very charismatic. He's a guy that can offer a lot. He's one of boxing's most unique and exciting characters, but most importantly, he can fight." That Miller can fight, I think we can all agree on that he can fight at a certain level.
He can.
Yeah, it's just how well can he fight once he starts approaching the upper echelon, the upper crust, those top tier guys in the top 10 and the top 5. How well does Miller fare against those kinds of fighters, because we haven't seen him in there with those kinds of fighters? That is the question. And that actually lends itself to Jarell Miller's allure and his intrigue, that even if he has so decided to play the heel, now that he's with Top Rank, saying brash things about Anthony Joshua, brash things about Eddie Hearn, that Eddie Hearn used him as a scapegoat, something along those lines, that in spite of all of this, people still want to see this guy, whether they want to admit it or not, whether they want to see him win or they want to see him lose. And that makes him an exciting guy in the division, that lends itself to his overall allure to a boxing fan, that maybe you like the way this guy operates, maybe you like the way he carries himself, or maybe you don't. Maybe you dislike this guy so much that you'll tune in to his fights waiting to see him falter, waiting to see him lose, as Jarell Miller here today stands undefeated. You know, in the absence of Deontay Wilder, who was America's only heavyweight champion, if he can't collect himself and win that belt back, America's going to need a new face in the heavyweight division, and I surely don't think they're going to go with either Charles Martin, Gerald Washington, Adam Kovnowski, or Andy Ruiz to be that face. Whereas Jarell Miller, he might actually fit the bill. He might actually fit the mold of the brash, trash-talking, hard-punching American heavyweight archetype. The bad boy, you know?
The bad guy.
I'll tell you what I think. I think that the usual suspects would actually get behind Jarell Miller if Deontay Wilder can't collect himself and get himself together. I could see that happening because for those kinds of boxing fans, they don't actually watch the boxing specifically for the boxing, as they side with whoever they identify with the most. And I think they'd identify with a Jarell Miller more than they would a Filip Hrgovic. They certainly don't like Anthony Joshua. They're in the process of vilifying Tyson Fury. They don't care for Dillian White very much, or Derek Chisora. Usyk, forget about it. They spend enough time trying to tear that guy down, even though he's one of the most accomplished boxers in the sport today. But there's a lot of guys out there that the usual suspects don't like, and the reason they don't like them is because they don't identify with them. Jarell Miller, for all his flaws and all his drawbacks, is someone they could identify with more than some others. And I could see them getting behind Jarell if Wilder
can't get himself together. That could actually work in Jarell Miller's favor.
Jarell Miller hasn't had a fight since 2018 when he fought Bogdan Dinu. This guy hasn't seen any kind of action in a while. And this coronavirus pandemic, that certainly ain't helping it, as it's postponing most every single sporting event for the foreseeable future. You talk about performance-enhancing drug scandals, and I think that Jarell Miller's ranks pretty high on the list of egregiousness overall, as he was found with 3 separate performance-enhancing drugs, 3 separate banned substances in his system ahead of what was to be the Anthony Joshua fight. But in spite of that,
He might still draw.
gotta remember, there are people out there that still talk up Luis Ortiz, and Luis Ortiz is a guy that got popped 2 times by VADA. Yet there are still people out there that talk him up like he's Ernie fucking Shavers, okay? The same could be true of Jarell Miller, as Jarell and those boxing fans, those individuals, they have a common enemy. That enemy is Anthony Joshua. That creates a situation to where, you know what, maybe these guys aren't actually crazy about Jarell Miller, but what they do like about him is that he's against Anthony Joshua. And
That's enough.
maybe they don't like Jarell that much, but they like him more than they like Anthony Joshua and most every other guy that's out there. So they'll get behind Jarell Miller before they get behind somebody else. Bear in mind, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, okay? I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying it's not okay. I'm just telling you what I think might happen given the current landscape and what's happening in a heavyweight division. That if Wilder don't get it together, America's going to need a new face in the heavyweight division, and I surely don't think it's going to be the face of Charles Martin.
Look, you want to know about MMA and fighting and combat sports? I smoke weed, bitch, yeah, but I don't drink alcohol. I'll fuck you up, motherfucker. I'll fuck you up. I be on a high, nigga. I'm a fucking Bruce Lee, a CIA. I'm a fucking Born Identity. I'm a fucking Matrix. I'll fuck you up, motherfucker. I'll fuck you up. If I knock your bitch ass out in the 3rd round, nigga, bring somebody else in. So Anthony Joshua, you just knocked out. You disappointed the whole fucking 20,000 people at the O2 Arena. Fuck that shit. Fuck boxing. Fuck boxing. You know what boxing need to do? Cause I'm Bruce Lee. That's the ultimate fucking shit.
I think that this particular assignment would require someone who's got a bit more mental stability, faculties, hierarchy of thought than the likes of a Charles Martin. That is, if this person is intended to be the American face of heavyweight boxing. And Jarell Miller, for all his flaws, is a very well-versed, well-spoken salesman of himself. Oh, he would be playing the heel, but he knows that. He's not trying to be anybody's sweetheart these days. So you ask me if Jarell Miller could become a big player at some point if and when he returns, and I dare say, yes, he could.